One of the most overlooked, yet profoundly troubling motivations behind reproduction is the continuation of ideological hostility, specifically, the inheritance of hate. While people often cite lineage, tradition, or cultural continuity as reasons to reproduce, what is frequently passed on alongside these ideals is a deeply embedded system of prejudice and conflict. No human being enters this world with a heart full of malice. We arrive as blank slates, devoid of the borders, flags, and grudges that define the adult world. Yet almost immediately, the grooming begins. We take infants who can barely form a coherent sentence and force them to pledge allegiance to a piece of colored cloth or a specific patch of dirt. We whisper in their ears that their group is chosen, special, or superior, while others are to be feared or loathed. This isn't heritage or tradition, it is psychological child abuse. By the time these children can actually think for themselves, their minds have already been partitioned by walls they didn't build. Rather than receiving a neutral introduction to the world, children are conditioned to adopt hierarchical views of humanity. They learn early who their enemies are supposed to be. They are instructed, implicitly and explicitly, that certain groups are inferior, untrustworthy, or dangerous. Through a process of cultural immersion, hate becomes normalized, and difference becomes threat. This is not education in the classical sense, it is ideological grooming. It is the deliberate encoding of a worldview designed to maintain old divisions, fuel current hostilities, and ensure future conflict. This indoctrination is rarely questioned within the communities that perpetuate it. Children are born into sides. They are assigned historical grievances and moral debts. They are given inherited enemies, not through reasoned understanding, but through collective memory weaponized by adults. The perpetuation of this mindset is framed as cultural preservation, honoring heritage, defending identity. But in reality, it is nothing more than the strategic production of future combatants. Reproduction in such cases is political. It is demographic warfare. Each child is a future soldier, voter, or martyr. Their existence is quantified as part of a larger struggle, a counter to the other side's numbers. These births are not purely familial or sentimental. They are instrumental, statistical, and ideological. It is a profound absurdity. You simply appear one day in a specific geographic location, a place you didn't choose, in a time you didn't create. You have absolutely nothing to do with the wars of the 1800s, the religious schisms of the Middle Ages, or the land disputes of your great-grandfathers. You owe no debt to the past, and you certainly don't owe the present a lifetime of animosity. Why should you be obligated to carry a torch of hatred just because you were born on a piece of land that someone decided to give a name? To hate another human being simply because they were born on the other side of an invisible line is perhaps the peak of human irrationality. Yet many are taught to feel pride, resentment, or obligation tied to these histories as though they were personal experiences. This irrationality often draws legitimacy from religious and mythological doctrines, particularly those that suggest inherited guilt or divine favoritism. The concept of original sin, for example, implies that one's moral standing can be predetermined by birth. Similarly, reverence for ancestors frequently devolves into the replication of their hatreds and fears. The mystique of blood and genes is used to fabricate a connection with long-deceased figures, assigning modern individuals moral obligations or animosities based solely on genetic proximity. This is not moral reasoning, it is mysticism disguised as duty. It is the mythology of lineage pretending to be ethics. In some contexts, reproduction becomes less about nurturing life and more about preserving ideology. Children become avatars of resentment, symbols of resistance, or vessels for vengeance. They are created not for who they will be, but for what they are expected to represent. And the cycle continues, not because children desire it, but because they are never given the chance to refuse. We even go so far as to build massive stone monuments, literal shrines to past grievances, just to ensure that nobody forgets who they are supposed to despise. It's a physical manifestation of a mental prison. We treat the next generation like products in a factory, manufactured specifically to be disposable tools. These children aren't brought into the world to live their own lives. They are produced to be sent into the meat grinder, to kill and be killed for no reason at all. When we strip away the slogans, the flags, inherited fury, and the mystique of bloodlines, what remains are individuals who appeared in the world without choosing their coordinates. They owe no debt of hatred to history. They owe no animosity to strangers born across invisible boundaries. This is a call for moral clarity. To create a life for the purpose of continuing a war, whether literal or cultural, is not an act of love. It is a strategic deployment. It is indoctrination at its most intimate level. Hatred is not an inheritance written into our cells. It is passed down through words, rituals, and repetition. It can just as easily be interrupted. If no child is born hating anyone, then hatred must be taught, and what is taught can be untaught. The moment we see how arbitrary the divisions are, how accidental our origins are, how fragile and singular each human life is, the logic of inherited enmity begins to crumble. In the end, it is profoundly simple. No one chooses where they are born. No one arrives owing blood for events they did not witness or owing anything to the dead. And no abstract boundary on a map can justify turning one human being into the enemy of another. The dead do not demand hatred. It is the living who keep it alive. It is the living who can decide to stop.